Hi, my name is Patrick Henry. I was born in La Junta, Colorado, along the Santa Fe Railroad, and I now live in Houston, Texas, and have a marketing company based there in Houston. Well, I have a long history with the railroad, my family. My dad was with the Santa Fe Railroad for 41 years. We lived in numerous cities along the Santa Fe Railroad. As I mentioned before, I was born in La Junta. My brother was born in Dodge City, which was literally the next station up from La Junta. My sister was born in San Angelo, Texas, during my dad's career at Santa Fe. And in his 41 years, we probably traveled easily 100,000 miles on. Was fortunate enough to have a private train car, and we traveled all over the Santa Fe Railroad for many, many years. And he eventually retired in Houston as assistant to the president of the Santa Fe Railroad. So we had a wonderful, wonderful time over the years on the Santa Fe Railroad. Uh, I was very, very blessed to have a wonderful father, Warren Henry, and I actually have two train cars, private cars now, and one of them is named after my dad, Warren Henry, and the other one's named after my mom, Evelyn Henry. But as a youngster, when he had a private car, we traveled everywhere on it. We were living in Chicago at the time, and my summers were spent riding on a private train car on the back of Santa Fe's famous passenger trains, everywhere from the Super Chief to the Texas Chief. And it was just a remarkable time in the summers riding on those beautiful trains on a private car. He had a tremendous influence on me about my love for railroads, and was always good about taking us on trips, going to his office, visiting different sites along the railroad, and it was just a wonderful time in our lives growing up. It's interesting. He at one time was based here in Galveston, Texas, in this actual building behind me. He was assistant general manager of the Santa Fe Railroad, and actually was one of the last people to have a private car based here in Galveston that we rode on out of Galveston. We'd go up to Lubbock and Slayton, where all our relatives lived, on the car on the back of a Santa Fe passenger train. So I definitely have a love for trains. Oh, I have so many fond memories of being a child growing up on the Santa Fe Railroad, and my dad just being a wonderful person, sharing it with us, sharing it with the family. I think one of my biggest memories that I enjoyed so much is that we were transferred from Amarillo, Texas to Emporia, Kansas. And Emporia, Kansas is a very, very small city along the Santa Fe. And I had to go right in the middle of the school year. I was in the third grade at the time, and that's a very difficult challenge for a child to move right in the middle of the school year. So my first few weeks at school in Emporia, Kansas, I just probably didn't know anybody. I was new to this. I felt strange being in Emporia, Kansas, and my dad knew it was kind of bothering me. And so one day he said to me, he said, I'm going to meet with your teacher, and we're going to do a field trip down to the train station in Emporia to my private car, and I'll have the chef do cookies and hot chocolate for the whole third grade class. And so we had a field trip down there, and I can tell you I could have run for the mayor of Emporia, Kansas right after that. I was the most popular kid in school. Can you imagine taking 19 kids down to be on a private train car and enjoy fresh chocolate, baked chocolate chip cookies, hot chocolate, but being on a private car? So that was one of my fondest memories of what I got to share, or my dad shared with us. And then just basically riding. I've ridden in the front of locomotives. We have these beautiful war bonnet locomotives here in Galveston, and I've spent many a miles being up in the cabs of the locomotives, riding on famous trains like the Santa Fe Super Chief. So I can't complain about my upbringing and over the years. As I had mentioned earlier in the introduction, I have a marketing company in Houston, and over the years, after I'm going on my 36th year of having my marketing company, but about 17, 18 years ago, I decided if I had the opportunity and the means that I would like to buy a couple private cars and use them as a marketing tool for my agency. And I was blessed enough to pick up two beautiful private cars, refurbish them, and 16 years ago, it was my first trip on our private cars. One is a 7-bedroom sleeper. The other car is a dome lounge dining car. And over these 16 years, I've done well over 100,000 miles traveling across America on them, entertaining on them. I've taken clients to 5 Super Bowls, to 3 Kentucky Derbies, to the Final Four in San Antonio, to Major League Baseball games. So they've been a fantastic marketing tool for our company. And I just recently got off of them from Los Angeles, came back from Los Angeles on them, entertaining clients out there. And so it's been just a remarkable promotional marketing tool for our company. It wasn't easy because you're actually the cars, both of them, as nice as they are today, they were showing their age, and they were very tired, is a good way to put it. So it was a lot of work redoing the interior. And the unique part about a private train car is if something goes out on your private train car, whether it's the air conditioning or the heating or a wheel goes bad, it's not like you can just call the AC guy to come out and look at it. Some of these air conditioning units on this car have been there for 20 years, 25 years. And if you need a wheel, just to get a wheel, you have to go to certain cities in the United States where they can put a wheel on for you. So it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. It's almost like putting a puzzle together sometime, figuring out where you can get these parts. And because there's not too many parts left around for two train cars that were built in 1954. This last year, I did approximately 35,000 miles on our train cars, going to unique places as far away as Seattle, Washington, Whitefish, Montana, up to Washington, D.C., Chicago, New Orleans, Denver, over the Rockies to the San Francisco. And it's incredible what you see by train. What you see out the window of a train is something you don't see on the interstate highways anymore. You just see wildlife. You see beautiful rivers, mountains with snow on them. At night, there's nothing more incredible than to be in our dome car and look up in the sky if you're going across Arizona, and you'll see 1,000 stars. And you just don't see that on the interstate highway traveling. And it's very unique, and I enjoy every minute. I never get tired of riding on the train. Our private train cars can go anywhere that Amtrak travels. We go on the back of Amtrak, the national passenger train service in the United States, that many of you know, and we can go on the back of an Amtrak train. It's pretty much a simple process. You submit papers, probably something close to what private jets do, and you submit papers to Washington, D.C., which is their home base, and you tell them that you want to move from point A to point B, and might be we're going from Houston to Los Angeles, and you put in that you would like to be on the train on Tuesday, we'll say April 2nd, and you would like to be placed in the station once you get to Los Angeles, and then the return trip would be 1 week, and they furnish water, they furnish the power from their engines to run the cars. They furnish things as simple as ice. They ask you if you need ice in the station. So it's a pretty unique way to move train cars. And Amtrak's been fantastic to us over the years. We have a wonderful relationship with them. It's always been about the same. Unfortunately, the Amtrak's had to cut back some of the places that you can travel to. The stations is just whether it's manpower or there are no longer tracks at that particular station to park you. So it's a bit of a challenge, but overall, it's pretty smooth. And again, Amtrak has been a fantastic partner through all of this. Maintaining 2 private train cars is a challenge. It's everywhere from, uh, the carpet staying clean to, windows. We've had, unfortunately, there's some bad people out there, and we've had 2 or 3 windows shot at over the years, and we've been, graffitied twice now in the last 5 years, and so, um, things happen on a private train that you don't anticipate, you know? You don't anticipate getting graffitied, you don't anticipate people shooting out windows, and when they shoot out a window, they're bulletproof windows, but they still damage the windows, crack the outside of the windows, so to get a window on a private train car can be a real challenge, and so we usually have to have a couple backup windows available at all times. And then when we got graffitied, that was a mess because it's really hard to take it off. And basically, you have to just repaint the train car again. Mechanically, we're fortunate enough to have a gentleman right here at the Galveston Railroad Museum, Jeff, that is a fantastic mechanical, and he rides with the train, and he even is a great, phenomenal chef. So we're very fortunate to have Jeff with us for all the trips and also to maintain the cars. I think it's almost like they've had that term that the best day of your life is when you buy a yacht or an airplane, and the second best day is when you sell your yacht or airplane. Well, it's kind of that way with the rail car, except I must say I've been offered premium money to buy the cars, and it's never crossed my mind ever to sell it. It's a love. It's something that I have a passion for from the history of my family traveling on the Santa Fe. But it's they're not cheap, and it takes a lot of money to maintain them. But again, you're not in it to make money. I've never really made money on these private train cars over the years, but I've been able to fortunately keep the cost down to a minimum by chartering them out to other people. When we're not using them, I charter them out. We've been fortunate enough to have people like Barry Manilow use them after a concert. We've had Howie Long from Fox Sports and the announcer and Hall of Famers used them. Gosh, Jim Plunkett, who was Super Bowl MVP for the Oakland Raiders, he's been on them. And so we've been very blessed to really have some high-end people chartering them when we're not using them. And it really helps to offset the cost. It's really nice because we have a great deal of repeat customers. We do absolutely no advertising to charter the cars out, and I would say that 70% of our customers are repeat customers, and from as far away as Chicago, Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, and it comes down to usually use them about once a year for some type of trip. As I mentioned before, I charter our train cars out to kind of offset the cost, and it helps a great deal if we can charter the cars out. And we have a pretty nice list of people that we can call and say, hey, we have an opportunity for you to use the cars from maybe Chicago to Los Angeles, and they'll take us up on it. So it really helps to offset the cost. I tell you, one of my biggest wishes is they would start the service back up from Houston to Galveston. My friend Franklin Denson, who started the Galveston train many, many years ago, I thought it was just a fantastic idea, and I had the opportunity to ride the train down to Galveston from Houston, and I would love to see that service start again. And I actually know a few people right now that are trying to negotiate with the Union Pacific to possibly start that service back up again from Houston to Galveston. But I tell you, I'd be the first to jump on board and help in any way I can to see that service start again. I feel that in my own way, I really am a good ambassador for not only the Galveston Railroad Museum, but for train travel. I've been interviewed by many newspapers over the years, from the Chicago Tribune to the Houston Chronicle to Winnipeg's newspaper, talking about train travel. And I love talking about it when I'm out on my private cars. If we pull into a station, I'm always letting people come on board for a few minutes to see and experience what a private car is like and to talk about it. I'm not there to sell them on a trip. I'm there just to share my joy and my enjoyment for private car travel. And I love talking about railroading, and I love to talk about train travel throughout the United States. I was fortunate enough, approximately, gosh, I think I've been on the board now close to 15 years, more than that, I think 17 years. And I was asked to be on the board by a gentleman named Ben that was the owner of Papa Ben's hobby store in Houston. And one day I was in the store and he said, "You should be on the board of the Galveston Railroad Museum." And so I came down here, I met with the gentleman. It was my first opportunity to meet the wonderful and brilliant Dr. John Bertini, and we have been fast friends ever since. And I owe him so much for his dedication, his passion for this museum. I honestly feel this museum would not be here if it wasn't for Dr. Bertini stepping up and supporting it and helping with his wonderful ideas and his connections. And I've loved every minute being on this Galveston Railroad Museum board, and I'm just so proud of this museum and how far it's gone over the past 10, 15 years. It's an incredible improvement from the first day I ever walked on the grounds. I think what I've enjoyed most about being on the board of directors is the board itself. I've met some wonderful, wonderful people on the board, all kinds, different lives, and whether they're an attorney for the BNSF Railroad or, as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Bertini. There's just some really wonderful, dedicated, passionate people about railroading that are on the board. So it's nice to be on a board where everybody's so passionate about the success of the museum. And I find that each and every day when I'm down here or when I'm at a board meeting. And we're very fortunate and blessed to have a great board of directors. I think anytime we can have guest speakers down here, and I think we're very blessed and fortunate enough to have Mary Jo comes to help us with this and does the PR for the museum. And I think the more educational outreach we can have, whether schools do outings down here, elementary schools, high schools, come and see this wonderful museum and the history behind it, the more we can share about the history of the Galveston Railroad Museum, the better off we'll be. I feel so good about the future of the Galveston Railroad Museum. I think that one day you're going to see us running trains out of here to Houston. I think you're going to see that this will be a big part of going up to Clear Lake and going to NASA with train service directly out of the museum. What museums in America right now can even offer overnight stays on beautiful private cars that were Jackie Gleason's car at one time? So I love the growth and expansion plans for the Galveston Railroad Museum. I think the future is very bright. Hopefully I'll bring our private train cars down here. My idea, and I'm hoping, my goal is to have them for the Polar Express next year and kind of have them as a VIP cars for our special guests. So hopefully I'll see you down here in December. I think the main thing for people that love trains and the railroad enthusiasts is just give back. You know, we have this beautiful, wonderful museum down here, and we would love for you to come down and tell your friends about it and spend time with us. And We won't turn down donations. We'd love to have some of your money down here when you're down here, but we want you to go away feeling really good about the history of the Galveston Railroad Museum and what wonderful people we have working here.